Well, hello everybody. This video is meant to help you find the axis of symmetry, the vertex, and possibly a minimum or a maximum of a standard form quadratic equation. Just a quick reminder for us, standard form of a quadratic equation is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So you'll notice that both of the equations here on the screen, I've got an x squared. I also have a constant, that'd be that c value. And you'll notice over here on the right I have a plus 6x. So for this equation anyway, over here on the right, a is 3, b is 6, and c is negative 5. Over here on the left, a is 2, c is negative 7, and because there is no term in the middle, there's no x to the first term, I would say that b equals 0 right now. 0x means that we don't have an x in the middle. Now, to find the axis of symmetry, there's a nice shortcut given to us at the bottom here. X equals negative b over 2a. So if I want to find the equation of the axis of symmetry, a vertical line, always good to remember, this is a vertical line because it's an x equals equation. Remember, anytime we graph x equals, all the x values on the vertical line are equal to each other. Well, I can go up to my equation up here, my function, and I can say x equals negative 6, right, negative b, over 2 times a, which makes this negative 6 over 6, or essentially x equals negative 1. And I would know that this graph will be centered right around x equals negative 1. Over on the left, well, we can do the same thing. X equals, now I'm going to have to say negative b, which is negative 0, over 2 times 2, or 2 times a. So this just became 0 over 4, and remember that 0 divided by 4 is just 0, which kind of makes sense. This graph is also a transformation. Remember that this is stretched by 2 and shifted down 7, but if we take a parabola and we stretch it so it's a little bit taller than normal and we shift it down 7, it's still going to be centered. We never moved left or right at all. It's still going to be centered right around that y-axis. So it makes sense that x equals 0 would be the center of our graph. Now the other really nice part about the axis of symmetry is it also, remember, always contains the vertex. Your vertex will always be right on that axis of symmetry. So if we start with our shortcut, right, we can find ourselves the x-coordinate of the vertex. Remember, the vertex is a coordinate, right, x comma y. And the x-coordinate of that vertex can quickly be found with negative b over 2a. So let's do that down here. X equals negative, again, a will be negative 1 for us right now. B is negative 10, and c is 21. So I'm going to say negative of negative 10 over 2 times negative 1, that a value, that coefficient here of negative 1, which means that x equals 10 over negative 2, or basically x equals negative 5. And we shifted to the left 5 units. Right? If we were drawing our graph, we're definitely going to have an axis of symmetry over here, but x equals negative 5. Now I also know our graph opens downwards, but again, that doesn't tell me where my vertex is. It could still be anywhere along that axis of symmetry. So I need to take that x-coordinate and plug it back in. Y equals negative of negative 5 squared minus 10 times negative 5 plus 21. That makes this negative, again, negative 5 squared would be a positive 25. But again, this negative out here is going to stick around. Negative times negative will be a positive. 5 times 10 is 50. And plus 21. So negative 25 plus 50 is 25. Plus 21 would be a 46 right there. So my vertex is going to be way down here. Let's just call this 46. And I'm going to have a parabola again opening downward from there. So not a lot of room there. But again, y equals 46 means vertex of negative 5, 46. And I have a pretty good idea, again, of what my parabola is going to look like already with just a little bit of detail. Now, because that's opening down, we would also call that a maximum. So if you can find the vertex quickly, you can also find what we call a minimum or a maximum of our graph. So if you find a question that asks you to find a minimum or a maximum, what we want to do is start by finding the vertex. So go ahead and take the standard form equation that's at the top of the screen. I'm going to pause the video now, see if you can find the vertex, and we'll talk more about minimums and maximums. All right, and we're back. So notice again, I took negative b over 2a, negative 7 over 2 times 1. So again, negative 7 over 2 is negative 3.5. I plug negative 3.5 right back into my equation for both x with x squared and x times 7. Calculated that using my calculator and found that negative 4.25 will be my y value. So again, that's my vertex of negative 3.5, negative 4.25. However, that wasn't the question they asked us. They said, tell us whether or not our graph is a maximum or a minimum and find the value. Well, because a is a positive 1, I know that my graph is going to open upwards. So over on the left, down here on the bottom of our screen, because a is positive, right, down here, I know that my graph's going to open upwards, which means it has a lowest point. It has a minimum, as we say, a lowest point on my graph. So this graph is going to have a minimum value, right here. It's going to be a minimum. But then at the same time, that minimum value is negative 4.25. If our a value would have been negative, like it was on the previous screen, our graph would have opened downwards, such as the graph on the right side there. And again, we would have had a maximum of our graph. So two things we needed to check. Is a positive? Our parabola would open up and have a minimum value at the vertex. Or does our parabola have a negative a value? Our parabola is going to open downward, therefore have a maximum y value at that vertex. Either way, it's the y coordinate of the vertex. If you found that coordinate at negative 4.25, that is your min or max value. The question is it a minimum or is it a maximum? I hope that helps you again find both the axis of symmetry using negative b over 2a, the vertex, again using that x value to go get the y value, and also be able to use that y value to identify is it a maximum or a minimum on your graph. If you have any other questions, make sure you talk to your teacher. Otherwise, have a great day and happy parabolas.